We're actually technically, yeah, okay, so we're going to go ahead and call to order the Tuesday, August 23rd meeting of the St. Bernard Community Improvement Corporation. Is there a roll call by the secretary?
Jonathan Stuchel,
Present.
Tom Rolfson, Bob Culbertson,
Here.
Joe Brickler, Peggy Brickway,
Here.
Ray Culbertson,
Here.
Chris Sauer,
Here.
Chris Schildmeyer,
Present.
Jerry Wiedemann, Amy Osmalley.
Okay, is there a motion to approve the minutes as presented? Or are there any corrections I should actually ask first? Is that enough time to read?
Motion.
Okay, thank you.
Second.
All right, treasurer's report.
All right, the balance in Fifth Third bank account as of today is $384,993.68. The balance in the First State bank account is $35,318.06. That concludes my report.
Thank you. First in our action items, it's not a real action item, but I wanted to give everyone an update. I know that people may be thinking that more should be happening because we signed our purchase agreement, but the developer is now moving forward with their due diligence through as far as the financing process with HUD. So we'll be able to provide additional updates as they're working through the process. But this is just the next layer and level of having to wait a little while as they work through this. So as we can, basically keep the general public updated with anything as it comes forward, we will. But again, the project is moving forward. The application for Tower Avenue, I wanted to come back to the board. I did hear back from the applicant, and they are, as we had discussed, dividing that into the request for two 3-unit structures, as we had discussed, so that we could get greater use of the property based on the original square footage that they had planned. What they're asking right this moment is if we would consider, instead of just dividing that up into 2 separate structures, to allow for a 6-unit building to again, which would occupy the same, roughly the same square footage that we're talking about on that footprint and that property that was the original plan, basically left it underutilized. So is there a feeling, if that would be something that we could go ahead and let them, submit, because again, basically they're going to submit plans showing that. I don't really see the issue as long as they're willing to go along with what we had basically financially, stipulated in that. Is there an opinion or a feeling one way or the other?
So Jonathan, on that, so with the 6 units down there, in theory, you're gonna have, I guess, 6 different driveways, so that would eliminate all parking on that side of the street, for the most part. If I'm thinking about, you're gonna have 6 individual driveways with, I guess, some sort of front yardage. So then you're gonna have, 8 driveways in theory in that area. Is that gonna be?
Is that any different than what it would have been with the 2 3-unit? I mean, I think you have the same problem, 2 3 units versus 1 6-unit.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the original plan was only have 4 units total down there, or 6 units total through that whole block, and now you're adding 2 additional
Right.
units on top of that.
You have 8 total units.
You have 8 to
Mhm.
6.
So basically what we had agreed on was that we would allow for the 3 units. We divided up into two structures with 3 units per. I mean, that's what we had, had discussed previously at the last meeting. And the only change to this is, yes, I understand what you're saying, and it may eliminate, there might be room for 1 car in between each unit potentially, but it doesn't really change things. Our biggest concern from the original plan that was submitted left a large amount of actual, I would call it green space, grass area that would be left undetermined as to who would be responsible for it. And it didn't utilize the footprint the way that it could be. So I understand your concern with obviously living that area, but again, we kind of gave a an okay to proceed, but now we're responding back. Instead of doing it in 2 phases, he wants to just basically move forward with it as a whole. Because we actually said we didn't like the plan with all the extra space, because again, it would have left too much in between. And in fact, the applicant has actually also asked, and the reason I had reached out to you also, Bob, was the question about whether you have an HOA.
Yeah.
Because there was still,
Yeah, we
Got it.
don't have it. Yeah.
So as part of, I guess I don't have a conceptual objection to 1 6-unit versus 2 3 units. But I mean, was there any discussion of him actually expanding the width of the unit so that you occupy more of that space?
no, so basically what we did was that we discussed that to basically allow for utilizing the footprint to its fullest capacity and going back to their original reduced square foot submission, which would then allow for 6 units, instead of having the only increase by like 4 feet was his original upgrade, to only increase by like 4 feet in width, which didn't do anything. So we said, based on the frontage that the buildable frontage that they had, is then to go back to the original square footage plan, which would then allow for 6 of those units. At least that's what I remember from the.
So the original plan was, it was like 21 to 22 feet wide. The frontage on those lots is 160? So you're still talking, I mean, 20 feet on either side. I mean, that was some napkin math, so it might be off a bit, but.
So basically, again, where we left it was that there was going to be, whether or not we told them basically we wanted 2 separate 3-unit structures, and that we gave them, you know, an agreed upon ultimatum financially. I'm not making this up. So anyhow, it's a simple question. Are we going to allow them to build a single 6-unit structure, or do you want to keep it at 2? I just need a yes or no, so that they can submit the next level plan. We're not necessarily having to vote on a final plan, but would we accept a 6-unit structure versus 2 3 units?
It's fine with me.
Yeah, Mr. President, I'm fine with that as well.
Yep, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I would agree, pending our review of the drawing, so
Yeah.
it doesn't look like one big block, obviously. Yes, that would be acceptable, I think, too.
All right.
I guess the other thing that we could request, I mean, is to use some of that extra space on the property for a communal driveway that runs along the back of the properties instead of 6 separate driveways.
You would have to pull you don't have enough room now to do it back, unless they pull them forward.
So
It's a
there.
75-foot deep lot.
So there was a plan that actually was, well, it wasn't a complete plan. There were conceptual drawings submitted that showed an entrance from McClelland going up from the back side of the actual proposed structures, and then you used green space in between your units and the new units to exit back out on the tower. So there was a way to come and go, and you actually then had basically the structures right up front.
Yeah, Mr. President, I'm fine with them submitting a proposal. I have some reservations, I'll say, about just the continuity. Talking about getting a half-circle driveway, I want to see I would want to see the design. My problem is, are we going for quantity or quality here? I mean, it seems like we're adding units to fill a space instead of just, making the units bigger, making them, I would just want to see, okay, are we just trying to stay under a certain price threshold, and that's why we're trying to keep the units compact, versus, expanding the units and, I think last time we talked, or I remember, was these were only like 1,400 square feet. You know, is there, you know, concern that they can't sell over that, you know, square footage? You know, just more details about, you know, the plan and, you know, again, why we're, you know, pushing to wedge, you know, 6 units instead of 4. You know, I thought they were going back and looking at maybe just, you know, adding a couple feet. Maybe it's cost prohibitive. Maybe you know, it just prices them out. I don't know.
So based on their response, again, was not, you know, what they submitted the second time around didn't really utilize the land itself. And so it was at the particular meeting that I'm discussing, basically what we had addressed, again, was the fact that it wasn't utilizing the space. We basically went back, we discussed this, and I'm not saying because you weren't here, but that's when we discussed this. So basically, the idea was that, you know, not to have utilized green space in between for a dog park or whatever else. The big problem was that trying to take responsibility, who's going to maintain open area in between. So basically what was proposed was to utilize the open area and actually try to utilize as much of the footprint as possible. So in their point was that rather than creating such a large structure that would maybe take it to a different price point, that they keep it within a reasonable square footage, create more units, because again, whether or not you're, like the unit, say the size of what you have, whether would be semi-cost prohibitive. I mean, it was, I think that was a concern even with the previous builder if they were to continue, because basically the price point being set based on what comps were out there. I mean, that set a high level. So I guess their point is trying to create the more units, and we actually went along with the idea of what they had submitted, other than telling them that they needed to refine this. Okay, so I will respond to them. Next, 4913 Andrew, as you're all aware, that property is actually up for sale and currently went pending on MLS. Basically, you know, again, there is a deed restriction on that particular property as well, as we had written in, requiring that the property be, you know, maintained as an owner-occupied unit, which just, again, was not listed in the MLS. Not that there's any doubt that it would be, but I guess the next step being whether or not we place the, you know, the courtesy call to, you know, the agent, which again is the same agent that was representing the buyer at the time when we were selling it. I guess that still needs to be addressed. So, you know, one of our other board members who's not here this evening made sure that I obviously knew that it was for sale and what the asking price was. We did have some previous questions about, you know, whether or not the individual did do the exact level of improvements on the property, which appears to not have totally happened, but we definitely want to make sure that it is an owner-occupied structure. So Meredith, do you want me to call the,
I mean,
or just?
It sounds like we have the issue with the water bill still outstanding.
So what I had found out that we can't change the name unless we pay it in full. So we would need to pay it and then try to recover what was paid, and then we can change it, but we can't change it with an outstanding balance. So.
Well, so that I think should be part of the conversation with the agent, because I guess until we talk to them, I don't want to pay it on their behalf and then collect from them. At some point, that the seller's, he can't not be able to transfer utilities into his buyer's name. So.
And I will find out the exact amount tomorrow, because I know there may have been a new bill that floated through, and I'll find out.
I could actually get a copy of that bill.
And you would have remembered paying something for 4913, so, all right, because it may have slipped through and come in the mail, but if not, I'll get a current outstanding balance. Because I actually got another phone call, it just didn't tell me the amount.
It was passed down.
Yeah, today.
Hopefully shut it off.
I was hoping that, but yes. So, one other item under, I guess, open agenda, additional items. Chris, have you had an opportunity to look at the roof issue? Because again, I just got another notification from Dollar General, just basically describing the area that's leaking.
Yeah, I stopped by and looked at it. It's definitely a roof leak. It's too much of a leak to be the even though it is right below a unit. I think, is that a unit that got replaced recently?
There was, I need to verify whether or not the work has been completed because we haven't been billed for it, but there were 2 units that actually had issues. So is there a potential that you're saying that maybe they could have done some work and then punctured the membrane?
I think there's a pretty high likelihood that either in a replacement, they didn't flash it correctly or they damaged it. Because this was not I mean, I've been in there 100 times. This is a new leak location and it's really, really bad.
So there was no replacement. I could double check and give you, I guess, a better description of the scope of the work. It was not a replacement of the unit. There were, there was a breakdown of what they had to do, but whether or not, in the repair process, they punctured something, but I don't know that they actually removed the unit from, I mean, we would have been well more than the 3, pardon me, there were 2 repairs that had to be made and it was only like $3,500, so.
It appears that it is a roof leak. I can't say for sure that they punctured it, but it's
So at
right
this
the
point, would
unit.
is Hinson scheduled to come look?
No, Hinson actually doesn't have the capacity to do it in the time that we're gonna need it, so I'm gonna have to try and find someone else. Yeah, they don't have anyone available for a couple of weeks.
So and whether or not we try to reach out to, and I don't know if Siegel would have anybody locally, but they've been busy as well. I mean, I can check with them, or if you have a commercial contractor you think would be better suited for that type of a repair. Do
Yeah,
you wanna-
I can make a couple calls and see, somebody who's familiar with the rubber roofs, yeah.
Okay. And by chance, when you looked at the upstairs, were you downstairs and looking in the bread aisle?
Yes, that's where I was, yeah.
All right.
Yeah, it was a pretty bad leak.
Okay. Got it. And on the repairs, as I said, we still haven't received a bill for what was done by Dollar General's contractor to repair the HVAC, but that's forthcoming and that should bring us current. And then the only other thing, when we went into the Chinese buffet to get some items, as I was telling you, did you look at that where there was like literally water like kind of pouring down inside the entryway?
Yeah, I did see that. It wasn't, when I went in there, that was not leaking at the time, so it was hard. So I probably need to go back when it rains again. It didn't look to me, certainly the leak that's in Dollar General right now is not making its way all the way from there. And I didn't see, because there'd be you'd see it coming, other drips and stuff. And I didn't see anywhere where it looked like it was getting into Dollar General. But it wasn't actively leaking the day I looked at that. Now, the Dollar General still was, so it just must have been.
When you're approaching actually the shopping center, from Ross, and you're looking at immediately above the entrance to the Chinese buffet, there's another area that's similar to when you look to your right of that, where Save-A-Lot, where you can actually see where it looks like something is lifted up, like the
Oh, I
on the
didn't
edge.
see that.
And I don't know if that has anything to do with it, but there is an area that looks truly like it's raised at the
Oh,
at the
you
edge.
did mention that, yeah. I probably just need to go back when it's raining again and take a look at it, but I don't believe it's affecting Dollar General.
Got
Not that
it.
we shouldn't fix it, but I don't think it's getting to Dollar General.
Is there anything else that anyone else on the board has under open discussion or additional agenda items? I mean,
Do you want to talk about Crosley's?
that's one thing I left off there. Yes, we actually, so Chris actually has something to update because we've coincidentally had a couple inquiries based upon equipment that would be in the Crosley's kitchen. So Chris actually reached out to an auctioneer, so we'll give him an opportunity here.
Sure. If I don't know how many of you have been down there lately, but it was just kind of walked away from. So it's got everything in there. Nothing's terribly clean, but all of the cooking appliances and everything like that is still down there. So the Penny Whirly is a local company that does a lot of restaurant stuff, and it was a way to perhaps dispose of some useful pieces of equipment without us having to deal with it or having to figure out who gets what. So it is not, it's a 50% commission. So, I mean, this is not this would not be a revenue generator for us. This would be an opportunity for us to have some stuff that would just be going to a landfill or being buried or whatever, and giving it some life and some use. Their commission is basically at its highest level for this because it's a pretty small auction for them. And furthermore, frankly, he said there's only a few items in there that are of real value. That basically all of those things would need to be included, meaning we couldn't pick off a few items and say, well, we're going to keep these and you sell the rest, because the things we'd pick would probably be the ones they want. So the timing would be, could happen as fast as September, but could happen basically whenever you want. So their stuff is online, typically with a preview day before the final auction date, and then you've got a day or two to come and claim everything, and then that's that. So due to the nature of this would be, basically open to the public. There would be no preference for St. Bernard folks other than their convenience to come get things and to look at things and to have perhaps a better sense for what they'd be getting just from having familiarity with it. But I investigated the notion of running two separate auctions. A first one that would be for local businesses first, vetted local businesses, and then anything left after that would go to the public. It was their opinion that basically that would be, that it's too small, too little, not worth it, and the best way, and what folks have done in similar circumstances to ours, is just give your folks the best chance by doing the best job of promoting it locally. So again, it would be quote-unquote expensive in the sense that the commission is high, but it would involve very little from us. They would take care of the photographs and all of that.
And one of the issues came up again as the Eagles, had approached us, and, as fond as I still am Eagles, the issue being is that not giving others, equal opportunity that may have an interest in it. This just kind of frees us up from that, instead of just saying we sold it directly to someone that made an inquiry, because there actually still is, and I don't think that anyone really knew just how much equipment was actually still in this unit. I mean, it has I wouldn't call it a fully functioning kitchen right this second, but I mean, it has a lot more than what anyone would think, other than a working walk-in.
We don't quite know about the walk-in.
All right,
I
anyone
say-
have a?
I say go for it. I mean, I don't see what we have to lose on this one.
I think we need to, at this point, if the board is in support of it, I think we need to, take a vote on this to make sure that we can move forward, because again, we'd be technically, again, selling an asset. So at this point, I would ask for, a motion that we allow to, enter into an agreement with Penny Worley Auctioneers to sell the contents of Crosley's.
Let me make one comment first. Before that, there is still some stuff, arcade kind of stuff, that I think is owned by others. And
So-
I would contact them first.
Yeah, there's, correct. So Pioneer Vending, which we need to reach out, and then the guy that owns the gumball machines.
Yes.
So it would just be the kitchen.
No, it would be like they'd sell the booze, the tables,
Oh.
the dart boards, the
Contents except
yeah, the
for
content.
arcade games.
Unless Pioneer Vending doesn't care about them anymore, which is a distinct possibility given their age. But yeah, otherwise, I would make a motion that we enter into a contract with Penny Worley for the contents of Crosley's.
I'll second that.
All right. On the motion to engage Penny Worley Auctioneers to sell the contents, with the exception of items owned by third parties, contents of Crosley's. Jonathan Stugel?
Yes.
Bob Culbertson?
Yes.
Peggy Brookway?
Yes.
Ray Culbertson,
Yes.
Chris Sauer,
Yes.
Chris Schildmeyer.
Yes.
Do you have do they have a commission agreement or something? Is there a commission agreement or a listing agreement or something of that nature?
There is, I just got an email summarizing it, and he said basically if he knew I had the meeting tonight, he's like, if this is gonna move forward, there's paperwork to sign and that kind of stuff, but yes.
Okay. And how do you spell Worley?
Worley. And,
All right, at this point, are there anything else that we may have? If not, again, our next meeting would be Tuesday, September 27th, here in council chambers. At this time, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Mr. President, make a motion, we adjourn.